scratching and clawing and trying to get to that wild card berth, maybe the final wild card berth. Who knows? With a good week, they could be playing at Camden Yards next Tuesday. Time will tell. We'll be monitoring all things Orioles out on our social media, as well as Luke and I into the evenings around here while we prepare for the undefeated 3-0 Baltimore Ravens to take on the Oakland Raiders. We're going back out to the Bay Area, pick up a defending champion on this here program. He is a longtime sports writer out there in the Bay Area for the Press Democrat, and you can follow his journey out on Twitter at skinny_post. He is Phil Barber on all things Raiders. Nice start for the Raiders at 2-1. I know we haven't had a whole lot of 3-0s around here. They haven't had a lot of 2-1s out there. Raiders feeling pretty good about themselves right now, but this is a long trip and a tough game for the Raiders this week.
Well, it is, and I got to tell you, expectations are very different here now than they were a couple years ago, or than they have been in a very long time. And you're right. I mean, 2-1, 2 road wins. That sounds great considering where this team has been for the last 12 years or so. But honestly, I think some people are nervous out here. They expected a stronger start. The 2 wins have been real nail biters. They had a very disappointing home loss to the Falcons. And, I think despite that 2-1 start, there's still a little nervousness out this way.
Well, I think for the offense, it couldn't be going much better for them, right? I mean, they're running when they want, they're passing when they want, but somehow not scoring, right? And, on top of that, the offensive line has looked the part of the improvement of spending the kind of money they did in investing on Kelechi Osemele.
Yeah, no, I got to say, Sunday's game at Nashville, it was a very different game than the first two, and I think that everything you just said about the offense clicking was valid through those first 2 games. It didn't click nearly as well against the Titans, and it was kind of hard to figure why, but the passing game in particular, everyone just couldn't seem to get on the same page. Derek Carr missed some open receivers in the first half. In the second half, several guys dropped passes. And so that was disappointing to see that part of it fall off. You mentioned the offensive line. One key that's going on for this team right now is injuries along that line. I mean, that's the strength of the team right there. Those 5 starting guys, when they're healthy, that's one of the best O-lines in the league. And it's going to allow Derek Carr and the rest of those offensive players to do a lot of good things, but they haven't been very healthy. There's been 2 or 3 guys who have missed games. None of them considered too serious. Maybe they'll get everyone back, within the next couple weeks, but that is sort of an ongoing concern.
For them in throwing the football and what Crabtree has represented here with having Cooper on the other side, who looks all the part of a lottery pick to stretch the field, and I know he had some drops as well, but this wide receiving core is probably as good as the Ravens are going to see anytime soon, maybe until the Giants get to town.
I think it is very good, and Amari Cooper did have at least one other drop, maybe a couple on Sunday. That has been a problem for him, but he does so many good things that it overwhelms those drops. And I think he's just in his second year. I think as we go on and he stops having to think so much on the field, I think those drops are going to decrease. He's an incredible player. Crabtree has been superb for the Raiders. They have some decent complementary receivers like Seth Roberts and Andre Holmes. They have a young tight end, Clive Walford, they like. There's no shortage of weapons out here. If you look at the things that need to get better on this team, I don't think you start with the receiving core. They're pretty solid there.
So when you're like in Napa and Santa Rosa, are you allowed to drink cheap wine or no?
Well, you are, but you kind of need to pour it in a more expensive bottle.
Oh, I like that. That's a good idea.
And
right.
then pour it again out of that. But I think 75% of us do drink cheap wine, but you do have to kind of hide it a little bit.
Yeah, you just don't let that out. I understand. He covers all things Raiders in the Valley at the Press Democrat in Santa Rosa. You can follow his journey at skinny_post out on Twitter. Phil Barber here, back talking some Raiders. Where do you evaluate Derek Carr in this process? I mean, I think he was one of the anointed ones, the is of the quarterbacks, and we have a whole class of that right now. They're about to build a statue for Carson Wentz up in Philadelphia, Dak Prescott, and we're seeing what Simeon's doing in Denver. starter. Derek Carr's on the graduated program for that. But he hasn't really won anything, right? I mean, but he's one of those quarterbacks like Blake Bortles last week. Everybody loves him. He's a great off-season guy. But will he be playing football in January, and will he be a key part of doing that? You mentioned some overthrows. What are we going to see from Derek Carr this week?
Yeah, it's a very good question. When people ask me, especially like coming into this season, I got a lot of questions about Derek Carr. And when I think about him looking forward in his career, I see him as being a top-tier NFL quarterback. I just think he has all those qualities. He's a very dynamic leader. He has that sort of sense of timing in the pocket, pat the ball, move around a little bit, get it out when he needs to. Makes all the throws. And yet, when you ask me where he is right now, he is not quite there yet. And it's a matter of consistency. There's games, or there's halves, or there's plays when he's fantastic. But he has not been able to sustain it. Last year, down the stretch, Derek Carr wasn't great. He was one of the problems, one of the reasons that team was sub 500 last year. And I think going into this third year, with some carryover with offensive scheme and teammates, everybody expected him to take a big leap. I still feel like at some point he's going to, but I don't think he's done it yet.
I've heard that Jack Del Rio has mellowed a little bit, gotten a little more comfortable there, and certainly a team with a lot more expectations. I know one thing that doesn't get him comfortable as the mauler he was as a linebacker, and that is no pressure on a quarterback. And, part of the issue for this defense right now is allowing quarterbacks to, throw from their spot. And if Flacco is allowed to do that on Sunday, especially with the amount of weapons that the Ravens have now, much deeper arsenal than we believed 4 weeks ago before the season began. Now that they're 3-0, lots of targets, lots of weapons, and nobody's better than Flacco if you give him time. Tell me about the pass rush or lack thereof from the Raiders this year.
That was supposed to be the strength of their defense and maybe one of the strengths of the team as a whole, and it has been very disappointing, and that is a big reason the team gave up over 1,000 yards combined in the first 2 weeks of the season. They are not getting to that quarterback, and it's kind of a mystery. I think Khalil Mack was probably on a list of 3 or 4 leading candidates for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, you couldn't find a disparaging word about him coming into this season, and he is a very dynamic player. He can do a lot of things. He pushes guys around. He doesn't have a sack this year, and I think if this is a playoff team, you can't have Khalil Mack going 3 weeks and counting without a sack. So they definitely need to find some ways to complement him better, to get him free. Maybe part of it's on him as well. But certainly that has been a weakness so far, and if they don't fix that weakness, I think this team isn't going to be as good as people had hoped.
Phil Barber, he is at skinny_post and the press Democrat out at Santa Rosa covering all things Raiders now for the better part of a decade and a half. This is a better version of the Raiders, and I know you've been covering this and you'll continue to cover this Las Vegas story, and we'll get to that in a minute. But for Jack to be in a position here, and that division looks tougher than we thought it was going to look, but this is an interesting spot for Jack Del Rio to get another chance because this is an organization thought to be on the come and a team that has the capabilities of coming on the road 3,000 miles and beating a Ravens team, and better do that if they're going to win 10 or 11 games because it's going to take that in that division. That division's better than we thought.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Jack Del Rio is certainly a big part of the improvement of this team. He's really set a tone, I think, of accountability and discipline out here, which through those dark years of the 2000s was missing. This was not a team that had a strong locker room, did not have a strong sense of accountability. Del Rio's really brought that to the team. He's, fundamentally changed how it feels to walk into that locker room and, even to watch the team. At this point, to improve from here and to really become a playoff team and a viable Super Bowl contender, now you got to start looking at X's and O's more. And now we're really going to find out if Del Rio has the staff around him to do that. They certainly haven't been very good on defense over the first 3 weeks. Some of that is going to have to be changed with scheme, and we'll see if Ken Norton Jr. is he's the defensive coordinator, is up to the task for that. But you're right that going to Baltimore, this is the same with Tennessee. This is a big sort of game for the Raiders. These are games that they have to win if they're going to prove to people they're as good as they believe they are.
I don't think anything affects the play on the field. Certainly for a Raiders franchise, it's been rumored to leave Oakland ever since they got there and Mount Davis was built. The Vegas thing, at some point it's going to be real, right? At some point they're not going to be playing football or baseball, for that matter, in that dump out there that I love very much. I call it a dump with a lot of love because I do have sort of an affinity for that place and the BART and the Bay Area itself. But thoughts about where the Raiders are in this Vegas thing, because it doesn't feel to me like they're crying wolf here, and it doesn't feel to me like had the league owners gotten together 8 months ago and just decided, well, let's move them to Carson, that they would have been in L.A. by now.
No, it's not crying wolf. I think a lot of people at first thought that it was because they wouldn't be the first NFL team to use another city as leverage. NFL teams love to do that, and I think the league supports teams in doing that. But this is real. And it's very fluid. There's a ton of moving parts. The people in Vegas, the developers, are demanding a lot of public funding and a lot of public liability for loans and things like that. So there's a lot that could still go wrong there. But Las Vegas is a very viable option at this point. And in my mind, maybe even the leading option. You're right. The Coliseum is a dump. I've been going there watching the A's since the early 70s. I have a lot of fond memories there. I love it in some ways, but it's not really suitable for an NFL team in 2016, and so they're not going to stay there. Whatever the challenges are in Las Vegas or even Los Angeles, which officially remains a possibility, I think the challenges are even greater in Oakland because it's a more cash-strapped community and is not going to be able to pony up a ton of public funding. So I don't think it affects the players at all. I think that type of thing is really easy to put out of your mind if you're, the athlete going on the field, and same for the coaches. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of diehard, loyal Raiders fans who are very worried that they're going to lose their team.
Well, and what's the reality of keeping the team at this point? I mean, this is revisionist history with Al Davis and with the 49ers. I've been to Santa Clara. No one wants to go to Santa Clara. I'm keenly aware of that. But there is a billion-dollar stadium sitting 35, 40 minutes south that they could go play football in and still stay in the market. I know that's outside the realm of the Davis family even considering that, but it really does make the rest of us kind of scratch our heads out here.
Oh, absolutely. And the problem is that's what they should have been looking at from the very start. When they were building Levi's Stadium, there was some talk, between the teams and in the league of sharing the stadium. The NFL really encouraged the two teams to come up with something to share that stadium. It makes all the sense in the world, but it wasn't going to happen while Al Davis was alive. It just simply wasn't on the table. With Al's passing, I think Mark Davis is someone who would actually listen to some sort of agreement. I don't think it's his preference by any means, but I think he would listen. But the thing is, it's much harder now. Now all the financing is in place. It is now known as the 49ers Stadium. It's got 49ers signage everywhere. It's a much more complicated question at this point. So that's certainly, I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility, but it's not a leading candidate. I think what Mark Davis wants and has tried for and probably needs to happen in Oakland is to align with some people with very deep pockets. He needs some big corporate partners or, some billionaire to jump in.
Well, that was part of going to L.A., right? Part of going to L.A. was having a sugar daddy to build the stadium, right?
Yes, exactly. And in that case, and possibly even another team in the Rams to fund that. It's not something Mark Davis could hope to dream of doing by himself. He does not have that kind of wealth. And he's tried to put together some partnerships in the past and move forward on a stadium, and it's kind of fallen through. He really doesn't have a chance without doing that. If he does do it, if he is going to have any chance of that, he's probably going to have to relinquish majority ownership of the team, which, again, was something that was not even on the table when his father was alive, but I think could be a possibility with Mark.
Hey, appreciate the visit, man. Keep all the wine out there fresh. Don't drink it all. We'll be coming out there at some point to enjoy some of it. You cover all the Bay Area sports. It's really been a renaissance period out there, right, with the Warriors, and who knows, the Giants might not make the playoffs. Who would have guessed that 8 weeks ago, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of weird stuff going on right now, but definitely interesting time for Bay Area sports.
Well, no doubt about it. Great having you on, Phil. Appreciate the visit, man.
Nice to talk to you.
You can always find him at skinny_post. He is Phil Barber with the Press Democrat and Santa Rosa, covering all things Raiders as well as the Bay Area sports out there, including the Warriors, the Giants, and I guess the Athletics will be going home next Sunday. But will the Orioles? We're going to find out this week as they head off to Toronto and to New York. We'll be following all that in our social media channels. Luke and I will be out on Twitter at WNST, and I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And anything you miss around here, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from your mobile device from anywhere in the world. Download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear and live from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's chock full of headlines, box scores, standings, all the things that you used to get in the old newspaper. Now you get it in your digital newspaper. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in great shape. Even though the bikini season is gone, it's still time to get into the tailgating season. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis Kolatzos will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5, getting you ready for Thursday Night Football, as well as the Orioles finale in Toronto before they make their way to Yankee Stadium. Wednesday night, we'll be watching the Orioles play Alex Lewis, as well as Ryan Jensen joining us here at Greenmount Station in Hampstead, Carroll County, swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry, and for There Goes My Hero. Come on out, give a spit, meet the players, have a crab cake, have a beverage of your choice, and enjoy the great food at Greenmount Station in Hampstead, Carroll County. I'm having a sneezing attack. These allergies are getting to me. That's what happens when I drive out to the farm in Carroll County. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.